Good morning, comrades. It is time for Good Morning Comrade. So today in the studio we have Jeff.
I'm Scott.
I'm Erin.
Robert.
Yeah, we're all here. We do it every week, twice a week. Check us out on Tuesdays at 8 a.m. on WHIVLP New Orleans, 102.3 if you're in New Orleans. If you are not in New Orleans, you can listen to us anywhere in the world at WHIVFM.org/listen. You can also check us out on iTunes. You can check us out on Stitcher. You can check us out on any of the RSS feeds. Just check out our website, goodmorningcomrade.com. You can also check us out on Facebook, Good Morning Comrade, Instagram, Twitter, at Comrade Morning. What's going on, folks?
Let's drop, since this isn't on the radio, let's drop that sweet Patreon.
Pay us on, so that we can make this thing big
happen,
and we can actually pay the bills for these things that we're doing, because right now we're dropping money into this thing. And we love to do it. You love to see it. because we love to please your eardrums and your hearts
now
with our hot ass takes.
On Tuesday, on the live show, we'll call it the live show because it goes out over the radio.
Big show. Well, it's the big show.
As many Democratic candidates as possible.
We got to the G's.
I know there's so many. So, do we want to continue that, or just we want to go on?
Let's do the lightning round.
All right, here we go.
We started the lightning round with Tulsi Gabbard, and we didn't get very far. But let's just make the lightning round the end.
Okay, so we were at Tulsi.
Yeah.
Let's see. So that puts us at Amy Klobuchar.
Next.
Again, I have no idea why you're running. I don't know. Erin, do you have thoughts on Amy Klobuchar?
What kind of energy does she have?
She has ate a salad with a comb energy, and I'm not here for it, really. Very much not.
She's like the...
She is an abusive boss.
She's like the what if. She's like the Marvel what if doppelganger version of Elizabeth Warren, I think.
Bizarro?
Yeah, she's the Bizarre World Elizabeth Warren.
She is the natural conclusion to Gen X feminism. Like, she broke that glass ceiling because women can be just as aggressive in the workplace as men. Woo!
I got mine, fuck you.
Yeah.
Pretty much. What's
next?
What's next, Scott?
I don't know.
You don't know? You just...
you ruined the show, Scott. You broke the show.
I mean, I do it on my own phone, but I can't find my phone.
What are you doing? So we've got a bunch of people who are... Oh, Beto!
So, Beto, I didn't understand until I saw Empire Records for the first time, and then I was like, oh, I get why he's so popular.
Why is he popular, then? Explain it to me, because he is such a dork and a loser.
Yeah, but in, like, a stylish package, which is Empire Records.
Do you really find him that stylish, though? Like, because
No.
I just think he's lame.
It looks to me like since he's declared that he wants to run for president, he's lost like 100 pounds. Like, he turned into a skeleton.
He just reminds me of like a youth pastor who's like trying to be cool and he's not.
Hey, I know you've heard of rock music, but have you heard of Christian rock?
No, seriously, he's just exactly. He's just so corny, yo.
I mean, to be fair, when I was in my younger, more, shall we say, shy years, I would have been very in love with him, and he would not have known I existed, and I would have been really upset about the whole situation. So, he doesn't bring up great feelings, I will say.
I'm sorry Beto done you bad.
I know. Oh,
It's bad.
Or his type.
It's just sad because I think I said on Tuesday's show that he should be really pissed off at Pete Buttigieg for biting his style. Like
he doesn't deserve it because he hasn't earned it. He's too pathetic.
And that was really the sad thing about his debate performances. He kept talking about how he can flip Texas, and it's like, you can't even flip Texas to the Senate, bro. Like, what are you talking about? Like, you're overshooting.
He don't flip tables. He stands on them.
Yeah, I just don't. I don't even understand his lane. Like if you're a Beto dude, and that's got to be why he's polling so badly, is because There's much better shitty Democrats. Like, there's much better terrible fucking Democrats
Yeah,
who can actually win their state, like, in a Senate race. So he has no lane.
I mean, he lost to someone who's credibly accused of being the Zodiac killer, so I just don't really...
Yeah, he just got shouted down. Like, Ted Cruz just got shouted down last week in a Texas airport. Like, they were like, "Fuck you." He's like, "I'm just trying to get on a plane like you guys, like normal people."
I mean,
and they're like,
you
can't sit with us.
Fuck you! I'm getting in the plane.
You think he's trying to like scam to go do a Ann Wilson run or something? Maybe.
No idea. Like, I really don't understand the mindset of 90% of the people running. I don't get it at all.
To be fair, we made him. It's our fault. We hyped him up just because he wasn't Ted Cruz, and now he feels like people like him, and that's partially on us. And he probably feels really bad about it right now.
Like,
he was good in that arena. Like that was his area.
It's his fault for believing us.
I literally,
Not me. I distanced myself from that entirely because I never liked him.
I did give him $5. Like, if not for the presidential campaign, for the Senate race, I gave him $5 because I was like,
he bought a whole pack of cigarettes on you, man.
I don't know what
He don't smoke. He would never. He wouldn't even buy like candy cigarettes. He would not even buy candy cigarettes.
Come on, when he lost that election, he needed to blow up some steam.
He would like buy a sticker for his skateboard, maybe, but he would not like a "Don't do drugs" sticker for his skateboard. Up next,
he got himself a chain smoker's sticker for his deck.
Next.
So next is Senator Bernie Sanders from Vermont.
I'm not really familiar with him, so could someone kind of fill me in
Well, he's
on
like-
Bernie?
All I know is that's where I get my jackets from.
Well, what I know is he's like a stand-in for me personally. Like, if I was to be on that debate stage, he carries all the energy and the eye rolls and the exasperated throwing of the arms. Like, I look at him and I'm like, that's exactly how I would react on that debate stage. Like, I besides like kicking over the podium and just like throwing a mic at somebody and just being like, "Why are you here?" He's my avatar. So I don't know. I don't want to waste too much time on Bernie because he's the gold standard. He's the best. But
So let's
if
talk
you're
about-
listening to this, you probably already agree with that.
I just want to talk real quick about like what he's been doing since the debates happened, and then we can just move on briefly.
Yes, please give us
So,
substance.
in the first one, he kind of just laid low, and every question that they asked was like, "Bernie Sanders says this. What do you think about that?" And it was to everybody else except for Bernie Sanders, and he basically controlled sort of the meta narrative of all of the debates so far, except for perhaps the last one. But essentially, he's sort of like driven the entire race since 2016, and like essentially the entire trajectory of what the Democratic Party is towards like a working class mass politics agenda, and that's great.
Why do you think that is? Why do you think? I mean, in a very cynical way, do you think that CNN is framing questions of, Bernie Sanders thinks this, Bernie Sanders said that, as a way to just try to get them to attack Bernie Sanders? Because it seems like, I think honestly what's happening is a very Trump phenomenon of the more, and Bernie's campaign manager, Vaseem Shakur, has gone into this, the way he's, I don't want to say attacking media, but the way he's critiquing media is saying that it sends a signal to me as like a Bernie Sanders supporter and the people who support him is the more that mainstream media tries to attack him and to say things like, oh, they get people on and say, oh, he makes my skin crawl. He's bad. He is bad politics with women, which is absolutely,
They're exposed.
I don't know
They're
what
exposed to
timeline
what they actually are.
Yeah, I don't know what timeline these people are living in, but when they say things like that, it's creating a Trump-like atmosphere to where the harder you push against him, the harder that his people are going to push back, and he's gaining steam and traction off of it. Instead of, it seems like in 2016 they just tried to ignore him.
Right. They think that by like coming at him, they can make him disappear. And then so one of the things, and we can talk about Elizabeth Warren on this as well. There was sort of, and we both talked about this in a sense.
We'll just lump
there
it
was
in.
sort of like a nominal like alliance or like solidarity between Warren and Sanders, between whom there's like very profound differences in approach and policy. But again, if they're going to be working together and create the two poles of the Democratic sort of debate, the entire framework of the discussion is going to be between Sanders and Elizabeth Warren. I'm extremely comfortable with that. And now, obviously, like, my opinion is that, you know, I'm for, you know, essentially abolition of private property and all that other stuff. But and Bernie's closer to that, so he's sufficient in that way. So you know which way I'm going to be in that divide. But I would way prefer that than between Sanders and like Biden, or Warren and like Kamala Harris, or anybody else that's on those stages.
I mean, Cenk Uygur, I think he summed up from Cenk Uygur from the Young Turks summed up the first debate very well. He was in the spin room and he said it was like watching a kung fu movie where you had the two like uneasy allies. And they're just surrounded by all the enemies. They're all surrounded by all the ninjas.
I don't even think they're uneasy. Like they're personally friendly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But the analogy was they just went back to back and just fought their way out.
I was literally about to say
Batman from
like,
1968.
I think that's like pretty smart, because there's definitely the idea that if one of them attacks the other one, like, it's just going to destroy all the ground they stand on. Like, right. You know what I'm saying?
It was just amazing to see them defend each other. Mm-hmm. That was like something I don't want to say I didn't expect, but it was just like, I thought that was a fever dream of mine, and
very heartening.
I couldn't believe it was happening, and I'm like, this is for real. Like the Bernie Warren alliance is happening, and yeah, it was like you said, it was very heartening. It was very heartening to see.
And then so. All Bernie has to do for real, like, to just keep the thing going and keep driving an argument, is just keep playing the hits. Like, he's the old rock band who just can like make the crowd love what he plays. You know, just play that old song from his, you know, original first release single, and, you know, attack the millionaires and the billionaires, and talk about universal health care, and talk about the ruling class, and talk about working people, because he actually did come from that background. He grew up in subsidized housing. His family was murdered in the freaking Holocaust. You know, he's profoundly like. He's a working class person who come a long way in sort of like elite structures, and he kind of at the very least rhetorically didn't forget where he came from, and based in the policy that he advocates for, he's also pushing things that would materially benefit working people. Period.
Bernie, play piano, man.
I mean,
Billy Joel.
My thing is that, like, and I want to make this very clear that and this isn't cynical. I really do believe this is not like some kind of like weird Jedi mind trick. If you are in the Bernie camp and you know people who are in the Warren camp, like, you need to be supporting those people. And this is a way to like spin it.
Now's not the time to come kill, like, attack them now,
because there's just no. There's
too many John Delaney's out there.
Right, exactly. And here's my thing against, I wouldn't even say it's against Warren, but this is why I go for Bernie over Warren. There's just no reason to try to reinvent the wheel at this point. There's no reason to take all the energy in the party and try to put it onto somebody else. Just go with the way the tide is going and just roll with that. But if people are supporting Warren because they're not. She's more a reformer, and like they're into that.
She wants to play at the executive board games.
Completely support that. If they are in the camp of, I just irrationally don't like Bernie for whatever reason, but they like.
Then they'll go to Harris.
Oh, okay. But if they want to go with Warren because they irrationally don't like Bernie, like, just don't fight it. Like, don't even have that conversation. Just be like, absolutely 100%. Just and then the third kind of track I can think of is like they just want a woman president, and they land on Warren. I mean, go with that. Like, don't waste your energy trying to fight those people are your allies. Don't waste your energy.
There's definitely an aspect. There's definitely an aspect to like Warren's campaign where it's like, yeah, the word of capitalism is like safe. It's like a safety blanket that like people can't get their minds away from. That's from like the Cold War era, like you said. It's like, oh, isn't that what we use to tear down the wall? You know, like,
yeah. So these are the people that actually think that the Cold War is a battle of ideologies and ideas, when instead of just being a battle of power between two huge political entities. Erin, what you got?
So, full disclosure, I am actually a Warren supporter. I donate to her campaign every month. I really, really like her, and not because she's a woman. I know that but that's also
you don't have to explain yourself.
A very valid reason to like her. But yeah, I don't know. I'm not loving the talking points around the Warren. Like the idea that y'all thought that there might be some sort of a clash is so strange to me because, like, functionally, yes, there are a lot of ideological differences, but functionally, in the way our government works right now, we're going to end up at the same place. Like Biden, oh my God, Bernie or a Warren presidency, we're probably going to end up in the same spot. You know,
I don't necessarily agree. Just from the perspective of the way that they want to do politics between Sanders and Warren, is that Bernie wants to do high engagement, mass movement politics, and like Elizabeth Warren isn't necessarily against that, but her entire approach since her entire career was made in academia and by like attacking the banks through the structures that exist. And my sort of entire disagreement is A, with the capitalism thing, and B, with the fact that she thinks that she can win on like these capitalist terms with the structures that exist. And I think that's not going to happen.
See, my thing is my thing is this: like, I have much more cynical like ideas about who can win and who cannot win the presidency of the United States. And I've said this before, is like, when people say Bernie is too radical, I say, well, the thing is, it's a game. Like, he said it himself. You don't start negotiations. Well, I'm saying you don't start negotiations asking for half a sandwich. You ask for the whole thing, and if you get to half, then you take half. So, to me, Warren, if we go with Bernie, I mean, if I'm like Bernie, and then we land on Warren, I'm completely fine with that, because I understand we're talking about the presidency of the United States. We're not talking about the president of the DSA. We're not talking about the president of a new socialist workers revolutionary party.
But I'm not saying that. And again, like if again, like I said before, if the disagreement in the primary is between Sanders and Warren, that is the best possible scenario. Unless it's like this side of like Sanders and Che or something. You know what I mean?
So one of the reasons why I am a Warren supporter specifically, and I'm not saying that this is even a Bernie thing, it's more that I have met I'm full disclosure, I'm a social worker. I've talked about this. But in my work, I've met so many people who have these like super radical, like revolutionary ideas, but functionally they don't get anything done because they're like, oh, voting is for the bourgeois. I'm just going to have a million meetings about stuff. I'm going to do this, this protest action, which definitely has its place, but then functionally, they're not actually doing anything. And I know that I've had people look down on me because I'm not as radical, and I'm not, but
that's just LARPing.
Yeah. And I'm not, I know that. And this is not coming from Bernie at all. That I don't get that from him. It's a lot of his supporters. And you shouldn't correlate. I'm not saying that Bernie is his supporters or vice versa. But there is kind of a very toxic narrative around that idea, that the idea of, because incrementalism sounds too little, but the idea that, okay, going from private insurance to Medicare for all, like we're going to do that day one. And that's totally understandable. And I want that to happen, but it's a huge industry. If Bernie comes in day one, gets rid of, and I'm not saying he's doing this, but if he gets in there and just gets rid of it, we're going to have a lot of people out of jobs.
I just want to get in there real quick, just as a point of clarification. The Sanders plan, I believe, for Medicare for all is 4 years, or maybe it's 3. That private insurance still goes on. I agree with you though, Erin. I think that the not trope, but like the battle cry of we're going to eliminate private insurance is not the way to go. With Medicare for all, I believe that you make private insurance irrelevant, and you make the industry irrelevant. You don't have to tell people we're doing away with private insurance. It's like saying, oh, the Model T just came out. We're not doing away with horses and buggies. You're just not going to buy any more horses and buggies. Like, you just don't need them anymore.
I think there's definitely a really interesting idea that maybe Warren and Bernie could be the new binary. In that, like, maybe instead of having, like, totally ineffectual losers on the left and complete, like, vampire capitalists on the right, like, this should be the discussion everybody's having. The constructive discussion of, like, what are the things we can mine from capitalism, and what are the things that socialism could just totally innovate the business.
I agree with that to some point, because I've had this conversation with Aaron, and to where like I will defend not his policies, but Bill Clinton as a politician, and I'll get back around. Those will make sense as a step on the evolutionary ladder. Yeah. And that's what a Bernie or Warren is. Bernie and Warren is not, and Bernie has said himself in his platform, I am not the end all be all. Like, even after I get elected.
Not me, us.
Yeah, after I get elected, the job has just started. Like, the movement has just started. So they are going to be, they're not going to turn the United States into a workers' paradise. They are
Only the workers can do that.
Yes, exactly. They are going to be a step on the evolutionary ladder. That's why I agree with you.
One thing I really, really disliked after the 2016 election was all of these people who had they had come to Bernie. They were like, wow, we are going to organize. We're going to do this. We're going to do that. And I can't tell you how many people I saw afterwards who said, oh, the system's rigged against us. Might as well give up. Nothing's worth fighting for. And I was
Those
so personally insulted. Mm-hmm. And it was, you are by that idea, you're devaluing all the work that people have already done.
You're removing yourself from politics in a lot of ways, too. I mean, you're ceding a field in the war.
So
you're like setting all the work people did on fire just so you can see how sad you are.
Yeah, and I think, looking back, it's really easy to see kind of the ways we've changed and kind of the arcs and things. But it's important to remember that at the time, a lot of those changes probably didn't seem that big at the time, but kind of
which changes are you talking about?
So just the way we've socially changed. So
since 2009, or
no, just in general. So
okay.
The last truly radical. I could be wrong, but the last truly radical policy change I can remember was the New Deal. Like, that was the first, the last time someone was like, we're doing something completely, radically, intensely different.
That's where the social safety net was created.
Yeah, which is
prior to that, they did not have one.
But it had a lot of pushback then. And it was great.
Problems.
And it
wasn't perfect
wonderful.
either.
But so every other kind of thing that we've accomplished since then has been incremental. Mm-hmm. And I wish it had been more. I really do. But I think there's a place for incrementalism, and I don't think it's, I personally don't like being told that I'm not, I don't care, or that I don't know what I'm talking about, or these are all things that have been said personally to me, that I am voting for Elizabeth Warren because she's a woman, because it's identity politics, that I'm, that I don't care about socialism, or I don't care about people as much because, I'm like, a lot of people are not going to be super pro a lot of this stuff. We might need to ease them into it. Mm-hmm. I totally, in my ideal world, like, someone would come in and just fix everything, but we're not living in the ideal world.
And that's the thing. Like, I go back to what I said earlier about where we land. Like, the right does this perfectly. Like, they do this all the time. Like, Trump does this all the time. Of they take 10 steps to the right, and then they come back and they take 2 to the left, and then they're like, oh, look at this great thing that we fixed. And I'm like, if anything, the Democratic Party or the left movement in this country should be doing the same thing. Like I said, if we push for workers' paradise and we get to Elizabeth Warren, that's not a bad thing. And it just really upsets me how us people on the left, it's all or nothing all the time. And it's like DSA members and people who are in fact active in politics, like, we get that all the time. Like, from right wingers, I'm like, y'all are crazy. And then from people who should be our allies, they're like, electoral politics don't work. This is stupid. This is a waste of everybody's fucking time. And I'm like, well, okay, then what's your plan? Again, I'll say it again. Like, are we marching?
Most of the people who do that are just posting on Twitter.
Recorded a 20-minute podcast about how people who vote for Elizabeth Warren are useful idiots. So
that's true, and I took that. That's true.
It's getting real in here.
No, a couple weeks ago.
That's real, and as long as and that's why I want to get into. No, that's 100% real, and I want to get into, as long as she keeps up this energy that she's keeping up, then it's completely different.
It's a positive, helpful energy.
Yeah, that this energy where she is in there, like, fighting with people, telling people, I don't even know why you're standing next to me. You're not qualified to be here next to me. We need big solutions. I support Medicare for all. I'm not half-stepping anything. I'm not half-walking anything. I'm completely on board. But the problem is, you got to also look out to why, And I'm not seeing this this is a complete change from even last month, where I was reading all these like political articles. I was reading all these, not The Hill. I was reading all kinds of different articles, and they were like backing Elizabeth Warren to divide the left and wedge between Warren and Bernie. So that's where like the useful idiot thing come in, because if she was to win the nomination, all those politicos, and they would shiv her right in the back. And she needs to come out today. She needs to come out yesterday and says, "Hey, if I make it to the general, I will not take campaign money, because I stand by that. I will not take corporate money."
Huge
because
corporate donations.
These corporations are not throwing their money around for no reason. It is a bill that's going to come due, and she's going to have to do their bidding if she beats Trump and wants a re-election and needs that money.
Real quick, the good. So we've just sort of like migrated from Bernie to Elizabeth Warren, and it's important to talk about the good of what she's done, to contrast it with some of the problems as well. She is the person who came up with the Consumer Financial Protection Board, which is something that you can, like, if your bank is like screwing you over and charging you all these fees, this is an example, you can file a grievance with this group and they'll essentially mediate it and get those things forgiven or get some kind of reparations done back to workers. That's a good thing. And she's done several other things in terms of sort of like Wall Street reforms, Dodd-Frank, that sort of that were, at the time, they were able to sort of like at least challenge the banks in the face of the economic crisis in 2008. And once she, like you mentioned before, she was denied the position as the leader of the Central Consumer Financial Protection Board, she decided she would run for president. That's important context, and those are all good things in the context of what she's done in her career. And then she became a senator. She's also always had like fairly decent, at least, rhetoric that was always directly aimed towards the middle class. Now, to contrast, like some of the issues that come about with her, in my opinion, are that she will not like structurally critique capitalism, and that's sort of like where it becomes a problem. Not that the fact that I would like not vote for her if she became the nominee or whatever. I'm not interested in that conversation right now because we're in the middle of a primary. But when those things start to come up, when she starts to say like her approach being, and by the way, again, like I said, I continue to say her rhetoric and her positioning since this primary has begun have been very good, despite the fact that I don't agree that her programs that she calls universal are universal. For example, the child care, they are means tested because they do have charges for people who have larger amounts of money. That means that people that like Paul Ryan or all these other jerks, not Paul Ryan anymore, but that's just an example, they can essentially decide who does and doesn't qualify for these programs. And that's a problem. Universal programs have to be the solution, and that's what Bernie Sanders provides. That's the big, and she calls herself a capitalist to her bones. That's not making a break from the framework, and she's got this approach of being at the table with the CEOs and all the mucky mucks, as opposed to building a movement that will just burn down the Bastille.
I mean, my thing is that
that's the disagreement.
She was.
And I'm fine with that. Really quick before you go,
yeah.
I'm fine with the polarity of the debate. I'm gonna say it again, being between her positioning and Sanders' positioning much more than anybody else on that stage.
I've just noticed, again, going back to what I just said, I just noticed that a lot of the think pieces that were written about her even a month ago have completely changed their tune, and they're not backing her in the way. Because
she's made a marked change in how she's speaking, which is great.
So this is great, and it shows that she's malleable, and it shows that like a President Warren would be if we kept up pressure on a President Warren to do the things that need to be done, there's a good chance they would get done.
She makes responses to the stimuli. Like have you ever seen the movie All the Way? It's an HBO movie. It's about LBJ, and it's all about like the past. It starts like right when JFK got shot, and it starts with him going to office and all the Dixiecrats are just talking about, oh, yeah, you made that speech when you became the president about how you're going to try to pass the Civil Rights Act. He's like, oh, oh, I'm just playing to the crowds and all. And like Martin Luther King's like talking to him every day on the phone, and he's basically just trying to wrangle all these like Southern Democrats to like support him long enough to like pass the civil rights bill, and then they just totally like turned on him.
I totally hear all of these arguments, and I agree with them fundamentally. But my question about this whole idea of storming the Bastille is, why hasn't, if Bernie's going to lead the storm of the Bastille, why hasn't that happened? Like, we have a fascist as president right now. Why have Bernie, if it's to the point where Bernie Sanders is going to usher in a revolution,
a political
why didn't
revolution.
which I understand, but like, I just don't see it happen. I mean, if the current state of affairs has not ushered in a revolution, what's to say that him being president will? And maybe it will, but honestly, like, what does that say about people who call themselves Bernie? Guys obviously, DSA obviously is not included in this conversation because fighting the good fight. But so many people I know who are like, oh, I'm not. I saw someone on Twitter the other day who said that they're not voting for Sanders if he has Warren as his running mate.
That's
and I get
stupid.
It's stupid, but there's this whole idea of like being ideologically pure is better than action.
Yeah.
And that
You're LARPing again. Like these are people are LARPers.
well,
They're
sure,
just,
but that's around. So it's like I guess I just don't understand why everyone thinks that, okay, all of a sudden momentum and action is going to happen when there could have been momentum, there could have been action, and there was. I'm not saying there wasn't. Our revolution, there's the DSA has grown by
Justice
leaps and
Democrats,
bounds. You know,
multiple groups, yeah.
But honestly, like, I just feel like there's just a lot more of like, and not to throw shade, but like the Dirtbag Left podcast of being like, oh, look at how much better we are than everybody else because we agree with Bernie.
I mean, when Obama won, he took the Obama for America coalition. We had all that. He had all the people who supported him, and threw it directly in the trash because, and I quote, "Those people are hard to control." That's exactly what he said. And so we don't have really any leftist movement in this country except for the people behind Bernie Sanders. No, take that back. We don't have any leftist movement in this country who are politically active. We have many people, like you say, who want to LARP as leftists. And when it comes down to when I ask you, what is your plan? They have no plan. And this is at
revolution?
Revolution. I was like, so when are we, I say it 1,000 times. When are we occupying
City Hall, capitalism?
The State House? When are we occupying D.C.?
I'm just parroting a fucking ContraPoints video now.
I'm saying we're not doing that, then I don't know what you're talking about. The only thing I know, then we have to go pull the levers on ballot boxes. That's what I know. If you're not talking about revolution in the street, I don't know. This is a waste of my time.
No, it's not, because I mean, you guys are part of the New Orleans DSA. The New Orleans DSA.
So are you.
I am. The New Orleans DSA puts on brake light clinics.
Mm-hmm.
I remember they were talking about taking photos of people's apartments so that landlords can't screw them over.
Oh, no.
That is all tiny. In the grand scheme of things, that is all very tiny. That's all micro, right? But it's still really, really important.
And it helps us build. So one of the things that I actually had a discussion several times with people from out of town who are critical of brake light clinics, which I'm not saying that you are, but one of the things
I love that.
Yeah, no, totally. And one of the things that are super effective about these kinds of things, like these sort of mutual aid projects, like you said, they're tiny, but they actually provide 2, perhaps 3. Well, 3. One is the actual mutual aid being provided. 1. 2 is that it makes a very positive point of contact for people who are not familiar with our organization to have a first contact and say, hey, my brake light was out and these socialists fixed it. 3, these are very easy to reproduce projects that we're doing as an organization that help us to get people experience in doing any kind of organizing, and they can take ownership of a project that they've done, and you can essentially develop leaders through that process.
Sounds pretty easy to market too.
Sure, but so I guess
harder than you think. Actually,
that's like a thing that
leftists.
works. I don't disagree with. That's a model that works, but I guess I don't understand how then you can't extrapolate that to Warren. Like, there's a lot of people in this country who are not on board with socialism, who love capitalism, who think they like capitalism. They don't actually like it, but they think they like it. They are very set in their ways. They're very so. I don't know, the idea of going from a straight on, like full on fascist to someone who is like, we're getting rid of healthcare, your private healthcare, I don't know that the country can really handle that, and I hope it can't. Like, I'm going to full-heartedly say I love Bernie. I love
Sure.
love,
Yeah,
love
no.
Bernie.
I'm not. Nobody's saying that you don't.
I guess I don't understand where the disconnect is. That like on the local level, like these small actions help, but then on the national level, Warren is not doing enough. None of this is going to help.
Right.
I just don't understand.
So there are a lot of the Democratic candidates right now that I would not support if they did get the nomination. Elizabeth Warren is not one of them. She's sort of like one of the people that, like, damn, if we end up, if the best that we can do with her, I suppose, like, by the standards of the Democratic Party, which is historically awful. I suppose that's something that I can, like, that's a better situation than anybody else, save Bernie Sanders, right?
I mean, Joe Biden is the perfect candidate for the candidate I do not want.
I mean, if we're gonna condense this and like be super geeky, like it was like fighting game tiers. So if Bernie Sanders isn't even S rank, like for what I would want. Like I'd want
He's double S.
Yeah, no, not even. He's just like A rank.
Oh, okay. I see what you're
Keep
saying.
in mind, I don't play video games, so none
know.
of this makes sense to me.
So-
Bernie Sanders is good, but not the best possible.
Okay.
He's like
Yeah.
the third
he's not even like-
rank.
he's-
That's better than A.
Yeah, S is better than A. So he's like A rank, and then like Elizabeth Warren would be like A minus with an asterisk.
B.
That
probably.
I wouldn't even say B. I would say A minus. Like when you compare, she is light years beyond. If there was no Bernie Sanders and only Elizabeth Warren, and just imagine that Elizabeth Warren. Imagine a President Elizabeth Warren with what she would bring to the table. She would be light years more progressive and do better things to this country than any other president we've had in history.
So really quickly, since we're on this and we're like tangent upon tangent in the middle of the lightning round,
We're not done with that foolishness.
Yeah.
We got like
We still
Marianne.
got Andrew Yang left.
Oh
y'all.
yeah, I don't.
yeah, he sucks. $1,000 a month. That's basically he's a techno.
He said a good thing about global warming. That was
Yeah, Marianne Williamson is cool, but she's also weird.
Yeah, she's gonna hit you with her space orbs, and oh man, she's literally talking about like dark psychic energy.
Yeah. Anyway,
It's a good thing. That's not
no,
bad.
I'm against dark psychic energy. I'm for light psychic
wow.
energy. But anyway,
way of
she's weird on like vax stuff. Anyway, back to Bernie and Warren. If nothing else, the policies that Sanders puts forward, but more than anybody else, is way ahead of anybody. So Elizabeth Warren wanted to put together a student debt forgiveness program that's like up to a certain maximum number that has mean testing and qualifications, et cetera, et cetera. That builds bureaucracy. Those programs are killable. Sanders is just like, fuck it, it's gone. And like, I'm like, yes, I have so much student debt that I need to get rid of, and so does everybody else in this room, I imagine. And if you don't, please don't say anything.
Remind me, if Warren's is mean tested, is that what she's at still?
Is it means tested or is
I can't
do you know
remember.
off the top of- I know there was a cap. I think there was a cap at
If
like.
I remember,
like,
it was up to $50,000, but that could have been a while ago.
yeah, 50,000. I think you're right, and that's obviously significantly better than Kamala Harris's plan of like only people who had Pell Grants who start a business in a poor neighborhood. Which is
When you're a social
Who are
worker,
left-handed.
that means starting like a really crappy.
Yeah, you start
mental
businesses
health
likely to
rehabilitation
fail.
center. So like we don't need more of those.
You know what businesses last in like poor neighborhoods? Payday lenders. Right.
I mean, that is, and meat markets in New Orleans.
Yeah, meat
They
markets.
do great.
They actually have good
love,
meat markets.
Love the meat markets.
It's better than food deserts.
A lot of food deserts in New Orleans.
Anyway,
So I should preface all this with saying that I have not actually experienced any of these things I'm talking about from the people in this room or on the podcast. They're just the only people I can talk to about it, so they're bearing the brunt of my past trauma.
how about like is this something you experienced in like meat space or is it only online?
It's in articles I've read. It's it's just I come across just in my work, like I come across a lot of like very woke political people.
Yeah.
And
So
sometimes I'm
woke.
just like, and there's just an implication that I'm not doing enough. And, I've talked about before, it's like, yeah, it's a struggle I have. It's like a feeling I have that I'm like, okay, no, I'm not doing enough. The world is really terrible. I should be doing more, but I can't. And one of the things that I think is a problem for really anyone who wins a nomination and by anyone I mean Bernie or Warren,
good.
is this idea that a lot of the people who are either of their supporters are not, like, they're already out doing the work, and so they're not going to be as visible. So I know I talk a lot about like the people on Twitter, and I'm like, okay, well, the people on Twitter have time to tweet all day. I don't tweet because I'm tired. Like, I don't want to come home and like continue to think about stuff. Like, this podcast notwithstanding, I don't necessarily engage very much politically when I'm home because my day job is very draining. I'm like, I'm quote unquote direct actioning during the day. So it's like, that's problematic for these candidates, because I think, the DSA has given their support to Bernie, and the DSA does great, wonderful work. Nationally speaking, yeah. And
nationally, locally, it's a little bit different in the sense that, like, DSA New Orleans itself has not done official endorsement, but the national organization has. I just want to make a quick distinction.
Yeah. So, but like the DSA, at least I don't have any experience with the national, but at least I know personally that the New Orleans DSA is out there doing the direct action work. So, are they going to be the ones who are necessarily visible to talk about their support of a candidate? Are they? Because if
we even do a campaign for a candidate, which if I have any say in the matter, and if I have any energy to devote to the matter, there will be that.
Yeah, which is needed. But it's just an interesting. I'm like, it's a conundrum, I guess, because you have all these people who support Warren or they support Bernie for really great reasons, but the only people who are actually vocally speaking about their reasons are not very smart or not engaged or not,
or their class sort of like positioning is that such that A, they can have the time to do this, and B, it doesn't actually matter to them who actually wins.
Yeah, it's really. Yeah. It's like a safety blanket almost to be like, oh, I'm so ideologically pure, I'm better than everyone else.
And
like
I'm participating in culture by being a part of this quote unquote discourse.
When you're down in the trenches, you have to make some really difficult decisions. Like you cannot be ideologically pure when you're doing actual action.
No,
you're not going to be the person you want to be. You're not going to make the best decisions all the time, and you have to live with that. It's so much safer to just say, oh, I'm standing up here. Again, voting is a bourgeois concept. I'm not participating.
Okay, so I actually want to challenge that a little bit. Mm-hmm. So essentially, the idea of democracy and the idea of voting as like a bourgeois concept is sort of a little bit ridiculous. Just from the perspective of, like, if you're positioning yourself as a leader in a nominal democracy, and you very consciously and very visibly aren't listening to the people that ostensibly put you in the position that you're in, then you're necessarily like bringing into question your own position and legitimacy in that structure. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah. No, I completely agree with you, but I can't.
That's
tell
the argument
you
that needs to be made.
How many like leftists? Because I really have tried to like reach out and be a part of like leftist spaces before, and I remember I laugh thinking about it. I went to one of them and I was wearing like, I don't know, some feminism shirt, mm-hmm. and someone came up to me and said, "Oh, super cool. What leftist spaces are you a part of?" Radical leftist spaces are you a part of? And I was like, I don't know, like I volunteer a lot. I don't really know how
I'm a social worker.
I was like, I don't know how to answer this question. And I think there's this like weird barrier to entry where like, and again, this is not Bernie. This is this is not like people who are supporting Bernie for like the reasons you guys have talked about.
It's a form of credentialism. It's very neoliberal.
It's super weird. It's like, I don't know.
No, this shit needs to be aired. Let it rip, because I feel I get attacked the same way, and I said it before. That's why I'm in the DSA.
You probably get a lot of shit for being a Marine and being a cop.
Absolutely, and that's why I'm like in the DSA and not the IW, but what do we have? The ISO and all that bullshit. I've said because it's like
it's gone.
Y'all don't, it's gone. But it's like these other organizations don't do anything. Like we sit around and you want to have reading groups, and that's good. But after we've read, like, what are we doing? And that's why I want to.
I do want to hit the brakes a little bit there, right, in the sense that like there are leftist groups that were local to the ISO. There are different things of it that do things, and there are segments, there are even DSA chapters that don't do things. Right. And I don't think it can be necessarily assigned to a particular organization. It's more of a localized culture in particular areas situation. I don't want to like assign like because I think these are too big of generalization. If you talk about like, well, all the ISO they ever did was like go to college campuses and do these.
But
things.
I'm just saying, I just picked them out as
you give an example,
thing.
and I just want.
I mean, I can tell you right now,
that.
like I'm also quote unquote like I really don't do much organizing or. I do very little. I'm like stretched super thin. I make calls for Bernie. I'm in the DSA. I do this podcast and I do like our revolution stuff when I can. But like our revolution is the same way. At least locally here, like we had this huge, like back in 2016, they had this huge database of people full of energy. They're ready to do stuff. And it's like, well, what do you want them to do? And
die on the vine.
And died on the vine because nobody had a plan to come up with anything actual to do. And if it's, by God, if it's break light clinics, by God, if it's whatever projects like the DSA is doing, then that is putting those people's energy to work instead of just like letting it die on the vine or waiting around for the next election to vote somebody in that's not going to really make your life on a personal basis any better.
And not to like, I don't want to be doom and gloom about leftism because like leftism is obviously the only way to be.
Communism will win.
And honestly, these problems are. They come out of like a really, really beautiful desire to make sure everyone is included and that we're making decisions that everybody can live with and that we're just trying to cast as wide a net as possible so everybody can be a part of it.
At
and
least
that's
rhetorically, because there is some of this language that can be used. It's like the language of inclusion can be used to paralyze any action.
Yeah.
The language of sort of like, democracy can be used to remove, like to essentially either delay or like completely stop a project that's being involved just because, well, you're not listening to, X part of this that is like not like democratically significant enough to get, 50% plus one support.
Yeah, which is absolutely true, and that's like the problem with it. But I like to be optimistic, and I like to be kind of quote unquote charitable in my views of it. In that people are not trying to muck up the system. They're not trying to stop processes.
Good
They're
faith.
not trying. Yeah, it's really good faith, and it's again, it's like you have to learn to live with yourself because like not everybody is going to be included in stuff. And it's like, okay,
it's a shame,
how
but it's true.
How do we help the most people and damage the others the least amount? Like that is kind of where we are. And that's not ideal, obviously.
And by the most people, you mean like actually literally the most and not saying like, well, we can help the most, but the most that it's practical to support, like Joe Biden would say. Like,
no, I'm not fighting it.
I mean, in a sense, this is a similar kind of disagreement because he'll say like jerks like Joe Biden will say like, well, the best thing that we can do for all people is $12,000 monthly premium and $1,000 deductible for your health insurance plan, right? And that's helping the most people possible. And anything better than that is actually marginal,
Sure.
And that's bullshit.
And so that's actually one of the things I struggle with a lot. So this hashtag vote blue no matter who. I like on the outside, I don't agree with it. Like vote your conscience, vote for the person you think is best. However, objectively, so let's say worst comes to worst and we have a Trump-Biden matchup, right? I'm going to vote Biden because there are real people's lives at stake. But that's like a struggle because I intellectually understand that by having another like center-right president who pretends to be a Democrat or is a Democrat and, pretends to be a leftist, we are potentially damaging the future ability to make progressive moves. However, so like I understand
very fucked if
I
Biden
understand
wins.
that, but like I also understand that there are real people's lives at stake currently. And so it's like, okay,
less harm.
And I'm like, how do we make that decision? And it's really, really hard. Like I voted for Hillary. I did not like Hillary Clinton. I did not like her. I didn't like her policies. I had a lot of really, really serious criticisms of her. I voted for her because our immigration system would still be fucked, but we wouldn't have kids in cages, right? So it's like one of those. You would hope. You would literally. You hope. I mean, every time let's.
I know.
But,
I know what you mean.
But yeah, so it's one of those things. It's like okay, I felt bad about that vote. Like I felt like I was betraying my own value
You didn't
system.
betray a thing.
And I know that. I know I didn't. But that is a really, really hard struggle to make with yourself, to say, okay, this is what I'm doing. And and so I totally understand where a lot of these people who like are looking down on high from their ideologically pure perch, I understand, because it's, you do have to make some messy decisions, and it's not fun, and it's not, I would prefer not to do it. But you have to do it. If you're a true leftist, like, you have to make those decisions.
Well,
you have to understand the world we live in currently.
So that's an extremely materialist analysis of the situation. So you're saying that you want the most good stuff to happen and the least bad stuff to happen in a very, like, if you boil down and factor down what you just said, you want the most good stuff to happen and you want the least bad stuff to happen. That's, like, if somebody thinks that indefensible, I don't know what to tell them.
I mean, as somebody who's definitely, and I feel as somebody who's definitely put up the hashtag on Twitter, hashtag Bernie or Bust, which is not, that's dumb, but
you can do it for yuck.
Here's the thing. That I've never heard any talking head, any pundit get to the heart of the matter of why such a thing even exists. Like you were talking about, Aaron, you're conflicted. You don't. Okay, as the proletariat in a representative democracy, we're not lobbyists. We don't have massive amounts of money to give to a campaign. All we have is our vote. All I can do is give you my vote. All I can do is withhold my vote. So how do I take a party, the Democratic Party, and not punish them, but make them know that, hey, look, we want you to move in this direction. How do I do that without withholding my vote? It's the only thing I have. What you're shaking your head? No.
So that's not the only thing you have. It's not. The vote isn't the only thing you have. The things that you have is your level of engagement in the entire process. And I think you understand this actually probably more than most people because of your experience in the system. Like, you were a delegate for Bernie Sanders in 2016. You were, I'm sure, you canvassed or something.
Yeah.
You made phone calls.
Yeah.
You've given money. There are different levels of engagement that you can make in this process. That is, like, those different levels of engagement turn they essentially make it so that this person has more of a chance to win. Okay. So, like you have much more than that. You have your friends that you can talk to. You have your workplace that you can try and get people to do it. You have in my situation, right. I can try and turn the Jefferson Federation of Teachers to get them to at least have a Democratic vote as to who the local would support. There are different levels of engagement that you can do, even posting. I mean, like, even if you want to do posting and say, like, hashtag Bernie fucking, like, rips ass or whatever, whips ass.
Now it's my turn to shake my head at you. Mm-hmm. Because
these things matter.
We just had this conversation in the Tuesday episode. I can't remember, which is the blurb that came up about Biden. We were talking about Biden. So if you're saying that stuff matters, I just made calls for Bernie Sanders yesterday for the Debate Watch Party support team. For Bernie. Like,
where did you watch it at?
No, I'm saying what you do is, like, if you signed up to do a Debate Watch Party, it's my job to call you and to make sure that everything is going well. Blah blah blah. Do you need support? Hey, while you got all those people, we want you to also set up a phone bank for Bernie. So during the primary, we're going to call people in primary states, blah, 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 just like we did last year. Everybody should do that. Go to BernieSanders.com. I think that is it, BernieSanders.com, and sign up to help the campaign, blah, blah, blah. Okay. My point is, I just did this the other day, and you're saying that stuff matters, and it will move the process and who's running for what. Who the fuck is making calls for Joe Biden?
Nobody.
Exactly. He's running for president, right?
Right, but he ain't. That's not the process. That's not the kind of campaign he's running. Bernie's running a high engagement, mass movement type campaign. I know
that, but the man is still, quote unquote, he's leading those shitty polls, which could or could not be. But he's
running an inertia campaign based off of his proximity to Obama, and guess what? It's going to end him up. He's going to be embarrassed. Well,
we hope. But
that's my prediction.
The inertia of that campaign, without any real support, with just manufacturing consent, might be enough to win.
If it is, then we're fucked.
If you don't have, again, if you are not, if all you have is the vote, what do you do? And I understand that's a good, yes, we should support who you love and go
to the
fight
level
for
that
the
you
people.
can.
But I mean, at the end of the day, all you have is one person, one vote, maybe in a state election where your fucking district isn't gerrymandered to shit. So
it looks like a letter in the alphabet.
all I have is to pull support. All I have is to go XYZ or bust. What do I do?
So, yeah, but, I mean, pulling support is legit, but it's, voting is not necessarily where you do that. So, full disclosure, like, I started the Young Democrats at my high school. I was like the president and founder of that shit. And I'm still registered as a Democrat, so I can vote in the primaries, but I joined the DSA. Like, I'm a card-carrying DSA member.
I registered as a Democrat for the first time in my entire life
Yeah.
in 2017, like after I was denied the ability to vote for Bernie Sanders in the primary.
I used to donate a lot of money to the Democratic National Committee. I campaigned for John Kerry when I was in high school. I go to rallies. I vote in every single election. We're in New Orleans. We have like 13 elections a year. I don't understand it. Every other Saturday, you're going to vote for something.
God.
I go to all of them.
October
every
12th,
single one.
I think, right?
And
I think October 12th is the next one.
yeah, and I don't even know what it's for, but I'm going to do my little due diligence. I'm going to
state,
read about it.
That's our wedding day. We have to vote absentee.
Yeah, no, and I'm going to vote absentee. I'm going to.
Bessie Board is the state level school board, which, God damn it, get these people, like, vote against Kira Orange Jones. For the love of God, vote against her. She is a monster. She is on the board for Teach for America. So is Jim Garvey, who's in the other district. They are garbage.
Full
anyway,
disclosure,
I'm sorry.
I did apply and didn't get in
That's
out
okay.
of
No.
college, but
so
for
we actually had this
for
discussion
the best.
with folks about Teach for America. We actually talked about AmeriCorps in our last episode.
Yeah.
And the fact that people getting into those organizations, especially young people who have like stars in their eyes and think they can actually help things, they're not bad people. They're being exploited by a manipulative system that wants to essentially buy their labor for cheap.
Oh, I'm a social worker because of my AmeriCorps experience. So I mean, it was a
You were AmeriCorps too?
yeah.
Did you listen to the AmeriCorps episode? Yeah. What do you think?
It was really good and accurate, and yeah, I mean, I have
Is
a lot
AmeriCorps a cult?
Mine wasn't.
Okay, not all. So most AmeriCorps is a cult.
Well, okay, so I mean, I don't.
I'm sorry. I totally
Fair.
interrupted the trajectory that you were going down.
But it's just one of those things. Like how do you not support someone while still like trying to, minimize harms? It's like harm reduction in the mental health lingo. But yeah, I don't know. I've been very vocal about why I didn't like Hillary Clinton.
Cool.
I posted on Facebook. I said no matter who won the presidency, there'd be a person who was credibly accused of rape in the White House, and people were real mad about it. You're the reason why Trump won. I was like, and it's not because we nominated somebody who's married to a rapist. Like, I don't know.
You know why Trump really won? I mean, the really real reason that Trump won, like, this is my take on the whole thing, is that Trump won because people were not given an option. They were not given an option. They were essentially said, you're going to get more of the same A from the Republicans, more of the same B from the Democrats, or you can just take the fucking wild card and say, fuck you to all of them. And that's why we got Trump. It ain't got nothing to do with you posting against Hillary Clinton or whatever. People said fuck you because for 30 years, wages have not gone up in the U.S. Since the 70s. Since, not even Carter, since the Nixon administration, public services have been winnowed away.
So, one of the reasons, again, and we really can't discount racism in how Trump got elected.
Sure. That's been since Nixon, too. I mean,
to go back to the debate, and my love of Kristen Gillibrand, even though she really doesn't stand for a lot of things I like, I thought she had like a really salient point about our discussion about race, and especially white people talking about race. And honestly, like, we can't, like, again, leftist spaces it's like definitely racial discussions happen, but I don't think they happen in a way that's like very accessible to.
Not for like regular people.
Yeah. Like they're very like safe.
Academic.
They're safe spaces. We're going to do it, which is great. great. But sometimes you just it needs to not be a safe space. It needs to be like a...
Or the question becomes, why is it a safe space? Why is a safe space
I'm like,
necessary?
this is not a safe topic.
We don't live in a safe
Your
world.
feelings should get hurt. Like, we have like a very terrible record on race.
To go back to Orb Queen, Marianne Williamson, and that clip of her, like, I want some church. I want all the white people to stand up and
That
apologize to
fucked
black
me
people.
up. That was so weird.
That shit was cringy as fuck. But a wise woman once told me, somebody who's sitting next to me, she said,
It's me.
anything worth doing is worth doing badly. So I was like, yeah,
That's the only way I've ever done things. That's
Yeah.
like the podcast motto
100%
now.
right.
Which is like sounds really funny, but like honestly, like if something is not, if it's not worth doing it, if you can't do it perfectly, it's not worth doing at all. And like that's democracy. That's like that is all these conversations. Like no one is gonna get this shit right. Like how do you have a good racial like a discussion about how like half of the population descended from like people who enslaved the other half of the population? Like as a woman, like how do we have how am I supposed to have a conversation about like the ways that I've experienced oppression by the men in my life, even well-meaning, like without hurting some feelings? Like it's just this weird. I don't know. I think that's the thing about left. It's like we want
fragility
everybody
situation.
to feel good,
Which I don't want to
but
make people
while
feel
also
bad, but we
being
need
woke.
to deal with these fucking things, right?
Yeah.
We need I don't want to make people feel bad, but if we're gonna deal with these real things, like people's feelings are going to get hurt. It's
I
inevitable.
mean, like I took like a really good racism training. Actually, going back to AmeriCorps, like I was one of only a couple white people in my AmeriCorps program, and I learned some truths, and I had my feelings real hurt when I was in my early 20s, and I am a much better person from it. And it was all done with love, but it was people just not sugarcoating stuff for me anymore. They were just telling me like, yeah, this is like a thing that happens in my life, and it happens because of people who look like you. And I was like, that's not, no, that's not, I'm not that person. And then I had to go home and like think really hard about it. And my feelings were super, super hurt, and I cried. And now I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like I'm on board with this. Thank you so much for being willing to hurt me, hurt
Now,
my feelings.
An important question in this, though, because like when I think about this, like approach in terms of like fixing and like engaging with these problems, I really do think about like the sort of like psychology of it all. Like when you are going to approach and challenge somebody on one of these very specific and like very, very sensitive issues, unfortunately, you know, like psychologically speaking, if somebody is called on something and they're not expecting it, like physiologically in their brain, there will be a chemical reaction that makes them defensive.
Sure.
And and they will double down on that defense, and they will sort of like be extremely. And this is something that's you're able to get through, obviously. But like when people, that's fine. But there are situations where people can sort of like physiologically recover from those sorts of situations, and they can, from a very sort of like clear position, push back in a react. There are good ways to sort of like push back against some of the narratives that come from different groups, but there's also like extremely bad ways.
Oh,
too.
sure.
And when that's sort of like the interesting thing to me, like the immediately defensive reaction is like, how do you not expect somebody to?
Oh yeah,
react
and
that
I
way?
mean, in my specific case, the reason I think I was able to like move past my hurt into like a space where I was really grateful for the experience is because it was coming from people who I really cared about and who cared about me. It was like, because
That's important.
You know, AmeriCorps is like you said, it's a weird cult. So
And
you,
if you
become
get-
best friends with everyone you're in there. So it was like basically my best friends calling me out on my shit, on my bullshit.
People who you know love you.
Yeah. And I was like, and they were like, and do you know what it was? It wasn't, they weren't even calling me out. They were just not sugarcoating their experiences.
Which is fine.
And I took, but the fact that I was defensive about that when they were like, that wasn't even their intention.
Right.
And I think like,
You shouldn't necessarily feel bad about that. I don't.
no,
think.
I don't. I'm like super, you have to put, it's normal to feel defensive. Like that is like normal.
Physiologically, yeah.
Yeah. If I was to pretend like I didn't, it would be like, I'd be lying.
Right.
But so kind of on a national level, because like obviously it's hard. It's like a lot easier when it's okay, one-on-one, people who care about me, who I care about.
Right. It's not done
Best
for the
interest.
crowd.
But so like with the national level, what it ends up having to be is, we have to, again, it's not a perfect world. We're not going to be able to save everyone. Like, there are certain people who are too far gone. And I say this as, like, a social worker with love in my heart and change is possible and, like, yay. But, like, at a certain point, it's not worth putting energy into people who are, like, you just don't deserve to die, or you don't deserve to live because of your race.
Yeah, but, okay.
We're not changing them.
At least you got to meet people where they're at. And if where they're at is, like Nazi or whatever, you need to be like, okay, how do I denazify this situation? Or, like, is this worth any energy? Or even, this is just an example, or is this a, like, throw it in the trash. I saw American History X and it's garbage.
I know. I disagree with that at some point, because at some point you have to just defeat people, and defeat people at the ballot box is what we're talking about. And culture will change them. It might not change them. They might die. They might go to a grave, whatever, and be racist and terrible. But their kids just will be molded by culture. We need to mold the culture to where this is just not acceptable.
Well, that's what
I don't know if culture is that controllable. But
no, because it's if we kind of collectively band together to be. The left doesn't do this enough. There's call-out culture, but it's not like...
Call-out culture is bad.
Yeah, it's not that. It's what we should be doing is saying it's really terrible.
Uh-huh.
But what we should be... It's like call-out culture, but it's basically like you are canceled. You are like, we are not talking about you. You're just shouting down. Oh, that is a truly terrible thing to think. Just like calling out those terrible things, and it's not for that.
It's like, why do you think this?
Well, but that's the thing. It's not about the person that you're calling out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about trying to change a Nazi's mind. It's about all the people who like.
It's cultural forces.
Yeah, because we need everybody to understand, like, this is unacceptable. This is, like, unacceptable. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's very meandering, but...
No, but I think that we're really hitting on some important things, because, like you don't necessarily... because every human being that exists in a society is necessarily sort of subject to the forces within that society. And if that society is a white supremacist society, if that society is a capitalist society, if that society is racist society, which our society is all of those things, then the forces within that culture or that society will affect every single person within it. And nobody, not even the wokest woke person, is immune to that. So the question becomes, how do you engage with people within that society in a productive way? And I think that's a very the answer to that question is very varied and not clear. Mm-hmm. And there is a lot of work that has been done on these sorts of things, but the way that you're talking about it makes a lot of sense. So I don't think you're meandering. I think that the point that you've made have been very cogent and very, very great. So
it's just,
I'm validating you.
Thank you. I literally live for validation. Just true millennial right here.
You're so nice, and I like you, and like I'm enjoying having this conversation with you. I really am.
Just to validate myself even further, not even slightly political, my dog and cat like really hate being in the car, but every time I get home from work, they both jump in the car to greet me. Aww. And it's really, really validating.
I got a cat this summer. Have you seen a picture of my cat?
I haven't. It's real cute.
He's such an asshole. He's been shredding my ankles. He made me bleed the other day.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And you still
he did a great job of it. I want to validate how great of a job he did at ripping me open.
Yeah. We joke, but I love validation culture, but I hate validation culture at the same time, because it's like, that's a really bad idea, but like you really gave your point like
your
really,
intentions
really,
were good.
Really well. It's like, no, sometimes I'm like,
no, some people need to be smacked the fuck down. I mean, it's just what's got to happen. You can't always worry about feelings.
And separating ideas from people too.
My thing is, I think people have to be graded on a curve. Like if you're old enough and had the education enough to know things, like you should be called out. Like I had a fight with somebody on Twitter just the other day. Well, not a fight. This is exactly what happened. They said something dumb and it was kind of problematic about something. I can't remember. I think it was call out culture or something, but it doesn't matter. The point was I tweeted at them. I said, look, you look young. I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt. So you got some growing up to do. Just change your praxis. You need to get some education in your praxis real quick, because this is bad and this is why. Except somebody who's like, who's the person I hate the most on Twitter, who I tweet stalk? Simone Sanders. Simone Sanders, who is the press secretary for Joe Biden, who was the press secretary for fucking Bernie Sanders.
Well, she fucking knows better.
You fucking know better. You get no quarter.
She's a professional.
No mercy. I'm coming right at you.
So it actually becomes a class question.
Yeah.
And right now, and really, I mean, I'd have to go look into it background, but I'm fairly certain that Simone Sanders is, if she wasn't raised in ruling class, she became ruling class.
I don't know.
Especially.
I don't even care.
Well, so here's the thing. She is, if she wasn't raised ruling class, she definitely is now. Mm-hmm. And she represents, she's the sort of like the cops for the ruling class in a very serious way. So you, from your position and what you're representing and what you're defending, are a class enemy.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And you are somebody that needs to be done. We're done with you.
We are on your ass on Twitter every day. I got the bell
Quit your
rung.
job.
I dare you to block me too. I dare you to block me. Can I block? If you block me, oh my God, you're gonna get hit with so many proxy accounts.
Make me famous.
Please make me famous. I'm waiting on you.
Haters make you famous.
I really hate you more than any other right winger. I really do, because you know better. You know better. I really do.
Hard, man.
I cannot stand you. I'm on your ass.
Well,
let's end on that.
You're ending on that point on a very, very threatening note to you, Simone Sanders. Come on the show. You can listen to Good Morning Comrade on WHIVLP New Orleans 102.3 on Tuesdays at 8 a.m. We also release a second show usually. Maybe we're gonna play with the little release schedule. I don't know. Maybe not.
Tuesday and Thursday.
I like it. If we could do 3 shows a week, though, that'd be dope. I know it's a lot. Maybe we could do just a me and Scott show. I don't, man. Whatever. Maybe I'll just do interview. Whatever. I'm like booking the show on the air.
Yeah, plug the stuff.
Facebook, Good Morning Comrade. Twitter, Good Morning Comrade. Email, contact@goodmorningcomrade.com. You can follow us on Twitter, Comrade Morning. Patreon.
Search Good Morning Comrade on
Good
Patreon.
Morning Comrade. All the stuff. Listen to us on the radio. We love you. Bye-bye.